Baik Bapak dan Ibu, sebelum kita memasuki sesi panel yang pertama, izinkan saya untuk membacakan House of Rules dari sesi panel SNA 23 virtual.
Bapak Ibu, kami undang untuk dapat berinteraksi melalui Q&A yang tersedia. Silakan klik Show Q&A dan klik My Questions pada layar kanan. Bapak Ibu bisa berinteraksi dengan mengajukan pertanyaan kepada para narasumber. Mohon untuk menuliskan nama peserta dan nama institusi, kemudian diklik Send. Bapak Ibu, kami harapkan mengajukan pertanyaan secara singkat, padat, dan jelas, dan menggunakan bahasa yang santun. Peserta lain boleh juga mendukung pertanyaan yang disukai. Silakan klik like sehingga pertanyaan itu semakin terlihat oleh yang peserta yang lain. Untuk moderator nantinya akan memilih pertanyaan yang dimunculkan dan kami panitia akan menayangkan pertanyaan yang akan disajikan kepada narasumber untuk kemudian dijawab dalam diskusi ini. Mungkin itu Bapak Ibu panduan singkat mengenai Q&A dengan MS Live Event, dan saya lihat MC sudah bisa bergabung kembali. Kami serahkan kembali kepada MC Monica. Silakan Mon.
Baik Bapak dan Ibu, terima kasih Pak Edward. Baik Bapak Ibu, untuk panel sesi pertama kita adalah Accounting Technology for Maintaining Sustainable Environment yang akan disampaikan oleh Associate Professor Mr. Ko Ziki dari Singapore Institute of Technology dan oleh Ibu Anggi Pertiwi Dewi dari Perencanaan Lingkungan Kementerian Perencanaan Pembangunan Nasional Republik Indonesia dan akan dimoderatori oleh Dr. Nanny Dewi, dosen Universitas Padjadjaran yang juga merupakan Wakil Ketua 1 Kompartemen Akuntan Pendidik IAI. Sebelum itu, izinkan saya untuk membaca CV singkat dari Ibu Nanny Dewi. Ibu Nanny Dewi merupakan seorang pengajar yang meneliti karir di Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Padjadjaran. Beliau juga menjabat sebagai Wakil Ketua 1 Kompartemen Akuntan Pendidik IAI KAPD dan menempuh gelar Master di Departemen Accountancy University of Wollongong tahun 92 dan menyelesaikan gelar Doktor Manajemen Keuangan di Universitas Padjadjaran pada tahun 2006. Baik, untuk Ibu Nanny Dewi, kami persilahkan.
Terima kasih Ibu Monica. Yang saya hormati Profesor Mardiasmo, Profesor Dian Agustia, Bapak Ibu Dewan Pengurus Nasional IAI, yang saya hormati juga tentunya para peserta dari SNA ke-23 virtual ini. Izinkan saya untuk memoderatori sesi panel yang pertama. Berhubung di sini kita punya juga satu pembicara dari Singapura, jadi mungkin akan sedikit bilingual. Professor Ziki, I hope you don't mind that some will be in Bahasa Indonesia.
No problem.
No problem, thank you so much. Ada dua speaker kita untuk hari ini, tentunya yang sangat saya banggakan. Associate Professor Ko Ziki from the Singapore Institute of Technology, and Ibu Anggi Pratiwi Putri, beliau adalah planner dari Bappenas. Tema kita pada sesi pertama ini adalah lebih spesifik barangkali, yaitu mengenai accounting technology for maintaining sustainable environment. So it will be very specific in part of the sustainable development. Now it's allow me to introduce you to Associate Professor Ko Ziki. Associate Professor Ko Ziki serves as the Deputy Cluster Director on Applied Research for the Design and Specialized Business Cluster at the Singapore Institute of Technology. He also heads of Accountancy Program at SIT as its Program Director. So prior to joining SIT, Dr. Kozigi worked in Australia for more than a decade. He held a tenured position with the business school at the University of Western Australia, where he served as the business school's Wharton Research Data Services Coordinator. Also serving as business practicum coordinator, as well as the senior resident advisor of Trinity, that is a residential college at University of Western Australia. He was also registered university career mentor, mentoring students to achieve their career aspirations. Prior to joining academia, Ziki started his career as corporate tax consultant with the PricewaterhouseCoopers, and subsequently an administrative officer within the SIA group. For this panel session, we also would like to introduce Ibu Anggi Pertiwi Putri. Ibu Anggi Pertiwi, oke, ini yang benar mana ya? Pertiwi Putri apa Pertiwi Dewi ya? Ibu Pertiwi Dewi barangkali ya Bu ya?
Putri Mbak yang benar.
Yang benar Ibu Pertiwi Putri, oke. Saya pikir kita sharing name ini dengan Dewi. Oke, Ibu Anggi Pertiwi Putri sekarang menjabat sebagai perencana di Direktorat Urusan Lingkungan di Bappenas dan bergabung di Bappenas sejak Januari 2018. Ibu Anggi sangat berpengalaman di dalam mengelola lingkungan karena beliau adalah alumni dari ITB 2013, Insinyur Lingkungan, dan memiliki banyak pengalaman di industri, especially in the oil and gas, semen, kimia, dan perusahaan kemasan di Jakarta. She also very well experienced about Indonesia regulation on environment, also management system for environment, policies for environment, and also controlling on environment pollution. So without any further ado, I would like to allow Dr. Kozigi to present your presentation. I hope you can make it within 20 to 30 minutes. Now your time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Nanny. All right. A very good morning to everyone. My name is Zeki, and thanks for, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer, which is the Institute of Indonesia CAs, for inviting me to give this, to share my thoughts on the accounting technology for maintaining sustainable environment. So to start with my presentation, I would like to first share with you this slide. Oh, okay. Never mind. Can I actually use my? Okay. Can see my slide?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Right. So first of all, I would like to share this talk by Professor Fredman, and the late Professor Milton Fredman once said, "The social responsibility of business is to increase profits." Right, and this late professor was a Nobel Prize winner back in 1976, and the implication that the mention of this term means that companies are supposed to just make sure they make profits, nothing else, just make profits. But of course, as things goes by, the climate change to the globe, from the day where we have the Rio Declarations, to the Kyoto Protocol, to the Johannesburg World Summit, to the Paris Agreement, things have changed quite a fair bit. Right? People start to realize that we cannot just look at profits. We need to also be sustainable to the group, so that we could actually still maintain a world, a earth that our descendants can actually enjoy. And a lot of people would still remember the incident that happened to BP back in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico. The feature of this deep water horizon oil spill disaster will always be fresh on everyone's mind, especially aftermath, where people start looking at the photographs of the marine lives that was being affected by this disaster. I have a very short video to just show you how bad it was.
that massive oil slick now covering some 600 square miles of the Gulf of Mexico, and it could start reaching the United States coast within hours.
So BP suffered an outrage from the community as well as in terms of the investors, and they were actually being made to pay a lot of different damages. And the reason because people felt that they were all looking for profits, disregard to the society as well as the environment. Of course, BP then went on to a sustainable strategy by showing case that they do actually care for the environment. They do have a safety and a policy in place to ensure people that, hey, we are not just making profits, but we also look after the environment and the society. Now, so the case of the BP showcased to us that business shouldn't be just looking at profits. We do need to look into the sustainable environment and to ensure that we actually have a sustainable economy. So the question then is, how can accountants help companies to get more sustainable? I think there are three things that accountants can do to help companies transit into more sustainable policy. First of all, measures. Now, accountants are expert in valuations. So we should be able to assign costs of impacts on the environment or society into our books. We should be able to help companies to implement ESG policies. We should be able to even identify ways to reward sustainable policies. So that is our expertise in trying to help companies to get more sustainable. We are able to also disclose more information or better corporate information to the business world, to let the business world or the investors to know what's the company doing in terms of sustainable policies. So the light about the integrating reporting or the sustainable reporting is one good way to try to put non-financial information into the market so that people know what is the company doing in terms of a sustainable future. Being accountants, it also means that we can add credibility. So we could actually monitor business implementing regulations of sustainable infrastructure, sustainable policies. We can actually identify things that has been done wrong and things that is actually at risk. So we can add that kind of credibility to business in terms of going for a sustainable future. But how do we then prepare our accountants in this new world? I think accountants, like I say, are trained in measurements, are trained in evaluating, and of course, are trained to communicate the language of business. So with sustainability, we must leverage on our existing expertise to understand where we are on the sustainable issues. And to do that, I think firms need very high quality information to understand the impact on society and environment. The keynote speaker talked about big data, talked about things that have changed this whole world because of the IR 4.0. And in fact, we are going to IR 5.0. So the question is to have high quality information that's timely, that's detailed, that's trustworthy. Accountants need to understand big data. So we need to understand the different source of big data. It's not just good in understanding big data, but we need to also understand where this data can we get them from. So we need to be more specific as to where we can get the data that will be helping us to do our work in terms of measuring the sustainable policy. Now, IBM proposed that big data can be broken down into 4 dimensions. The first dimension will be volume. right? So the skill of data set. Now think about this. There are about 6 billion people in the whole world that owns cell phones. And every day, per day, about 2.5 quintillion data bytes are being created. In total, by this year, the whole world will have created at least 40 zettabyte. That is 300 times more than 2005 of data. So the data we talk about here are huge, humongously huge, that accountants need to be able to grapple with. The second dimension of big data is this thing called velocity. Now, there are a lot of information that's online, data that can be streamed online. So when we talk about modern cars, for example, modern cars have close to 100 sensors that can be transmitting the data back to the manufacturer to do more better cars. We have about close to 18.9 billion of network connections across the whole globe, right? And there's a lot of data that actually that can be transformed in real time that accountants can use to do their measurements. The third dimension is variety. There are different types and forms of data that accountants need to be aware of. Now, GPA tracking is one. It's no longer just debit credit entries where we look into our financial figures, our balance sheets, or P&L. It's about all other form of informations and data. Now, take for example, 30 billion pieces of content is being shared across Facebook per month. And about 4 million or 4 billion hours of YouTube videos are being shown across the book every day. So the amount of data that is coming from different information is crucial for accountants to understand where they can get data, the source of data. Last but not least is the veracity. It's important for accountants to understand that we need to ensure that data that we use are actually trustworthy and they are accurate. The last thing we want is rubbish in, rubbish out. So to understand the data is one thing, but what are the implications then for universities, for professional bodies then? What kind of skill set should we include to train our future accountants? If we say that accountants need to know big data, but what kind of skill set exactly that we need the accountants to have in the future? I think first of all, accountants should have the skill set of programming skills, right? We need to be competent, especially in statistic programming language or data query language, because with the huge sheer skills of the data that we have, we need to know how to chunk the data to come up with some statistics background for our valuations. We need to understand machine learning, right? I think the previous keynote speaker also mentioned about machine learning. So we need to understand robotic process automations. How can we use machines to automate certain process for us so that it can make our evaluations much smoother and getting our information faster? Accountants also needs to have the skill set of software engineering. So we should be able to handle a lot of data logging and the development of data-driven products, including designing and developing information systems. So accountants have to know how to deal with the data set and to create or at least be involved in creations of accounting information system that can generate data in that sort of skills. We should have the statistics and predictive analysis skill set. Right? We need to be familiarized with our statistics stats. We need to do predictions modeling so that we can predict what's going to happen in the futures, or to come up with a modeling that can come out with a measurement tools to do our measurements. Accountants also need to be what we call data intuitive or intuitions. We need to be a data-driven problem solver that knows what data-driven products to develop, how to interact with the engineers and product managers, what method to use, and how to approximately make sense out of our data set. We also need to know what to do in terms of data waggling. So we need to know how to handle imperfections in data, right? Some example of imperfection could be missing values, inconsistent string formatting, and how do we deal with those informations when we get all those information and ensure that the information is going through the system is accurate. But more importantly, we need to have a skill set of doing data visualizations and communications. How do we tell a story that we can actually generate non-financial information or financial information into stories that we can help our management to do our decisions. So if we are saying that these are the skill sets or competence skill sets that accountants need to have, so how do companies or how do universities or professional bodies design a curriculum to train the accountants. Now, first of all, I believe that the training of accountants always have to be the core, where we need to have a core skill set of our accounting competency, the standards, right? The framework, how do we actually deal with figures? But at the same time, we need to have that technology advancement competency, the dealing of data set, how to use technology to help our job more competent and more efficient. And at the center, meaning that how we understand sustainable policies and goals or developments that we need to fulfill our job. There are certain technology considerations that schools can consider. Now, we need to think about what kind of softwares or what kind of real technology that's being used in the market to get our students to be trained in. So it's no point of using certain software that is not being used in the real world. So we should try as much as we can as to use exactly the type of softwares or the kind of technology that is being used in the real world in trying to do up the measurements or the visualizations. So these are some of the technology considerations I believe that can be implemented by university, and that could be ranging from data analytics softwares, database softwares, data preparation softwares, data visualization software, machine learning, RPA, enterprise applications, audit analytics, and other data set, real data set that students can use to simulate what's going to happen in the real world without really having the real risks. So in conclusion, I just want to revisit what Professor Fredman said in his proposition, that the main thing that company needs to be aware of is profits. Now, I believe that in the new world, in order for us to maintain or to achieve our sustainable goals, it is possible that a company can make profit, but at the same time, be responsible to the society, to the environment, as well as to the community at large. Take, for example, T30 Hotel. This is a hotel that is located in Hunan province in China. Now, the company has won a lot of awards, including the United Nations Environment Program Champions of the Earth, because this hotel is able to receive a 9 magnitude earthquake. It's 5 times more energy and efficient, and it produces 20 times more purer air than any other hotel. And yet this hotel is one of the most profitable hotels in China. Now, you may be thinking that in order for them to make profits, it means that, and with all this good things about the company or the hotel, it takes many years for them to build this hotel. I'm going to show you a video clip, a very short one, and look at the left-hand side corner of the clock, and it will tell you the hours that is taken or the days that was taken for them to build this hotel. Is there a video now? That is sound alright. So watch out on the time here. And that's in hours. So what it takes was just 360 hours. So if you do your math, that means it's only 15 days. It didn't cost the company a huge fortune just to build this hotel, but yet it's one of the most profitable hotel and one of the most sustainable friendly hotel in the whole of China. Right, with that, I end my presentation. Thank you for hearing my sharing. Thank you.